the Royal Air Force search and rescue team based on Angelsey. These guys patrol the coast around the Irish Sea, and this time we're exploring their patch.
On my journey from Angelsey to Blackpool, I'm joined by some familiar faces. Nick Crane is seeking out the story of a tiny harbour that played a big part in making a mountain of money. Hermione Coburn discovers how postcards from the past reveal a vital message for the future of our seaside. Miranda Kristovnikov is on a sand dune safari in search of creatures great and small. Mark Horton's hunting for the remains of what was once the world's biggest private dock. And I explore a shipwreck that's disappearing before my eyes.
This is Coast.
Dublin was our last port of call. Now I've hopped across the Irish Sea. Starting at Valley on Angelsey, I'm making my way to Blackpool.
That's RAF Valley down there. If the runway was any longer, it'd be in the sea.
From up here, you can see why this is a great location for the headquarters of the Royal Air Force Search and Rescue Service. I'm going to hitch a ride with them later to relive one of their most hair-raising rescues. The RAF Search and Rescue helicopters don't have the sky above Angelsey to themselves. These runways see more than 100 sorties a day. None of the 60 Hawk jets based at Valley ever sees combat, but they couldn't be more vital to the RAF. This place is known by some as the Pilot Factory. It's where the creme de la creme of Royal Air Force recruits come to learn how to handle fast jets. Only 1 in 40 hopefuls makes it to RAF Valley for pilot training. Then it takes 4 years of hard graft to master their craft. To find out why the coast is the ideal spot for training pilots, I'm joining the ranks. Yes, I'm going up. I've been fitted with my flight suit and I'm feeling nervous.
Good to go.
Right, I'm good to go.
Let's go.
Armed with some fireproof gloves, a life vest and a huge sense of trepidation, I'm about to put my life in the hands of my pilot, Squadron Leader Ed Thomas. So Ed, why is RAF Valley right out here on the edge of everything on the coast?
Well, believe it or not, looking at the weather today, the weather here is actually very good for a lot of the year. So with the westerly airflow, we get a lot of clear spells, you see.
Weather permitting, I'm hoping to get a sneak preview of my journey from a whole new perspective. And at quite a pace. We're expecting to travel from Angelsey to Blackpool at speeds touching 600 miles per hour.
Here we go. Here we go indeed. It'll get noisy now because we'll wind the engine up. Okay. Wow. Oh, yeah. There we go. Safety everyone. Oh, look, there's the sea. Yeah, it's a good sea today. This is where you'll feel the foot. I'm definitely feeling G. The camera in my hand suddenly feels like about 20 kilograms. That's right.
Low-level flying is one of the RAF's most important tactics. So where better to learn how low you can go than over the sea?
How high are we flying at the moment? I reckon we're about 600 feet or so. It feels a lot lower when the sea's coming towards you.
We're just flying over the tip of Puffin Island, which I'll try and show you now. That's Puffin Island, and we're going past it so quickly, I hardly get the chance to show it to you. With Llandudno and Rhyl coming up, it's a reminder that this coast has some great resorts, classic seaside towns we'll be exploring later. Say hello to Llandudno.
Blackpool, currently 2 miles north of Rhyl.
Be advised, wind farm ahead of you by about 4 miles.
Oh,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, getting them out here is a bit of a job, I think.
Uh-huh. That's amazing. I used to watch these planes all the time and think that the guys in them had the best jobs in the world.
Yeah.
You do have the best job in the world.
For me, this is extraordinary. Like watching my entire route in fast forward. But for the pilots, it's just part of the daily routine that turns raw recruits into frontline flyers.
So here's sunny Blackpool. Not so sunny today.
No.
The weather down below isn't so great, but there's one place the sun always shines.
There we are, as promised, on top of the clouds.
Wow. It's going to be reminded that even on the cloudiest day, up here it's always the same blue.
Yeah.
Not even a day trip. Angelsey to Blackpool and back in just under half an hour. Still, what do you expect from a flying visit?
Brilliant.
There we are.
Brilliant.
Let's take a closer look now. Valley is one of the busiest RAF stations in the UK, but its location right next to the sea also makes it an enviable place to work. Just north of RAF Valley is Holyhead. Holyhead sits on its own little island, a sort of giant stepping stone for the 2 million visitors who hop on and off the ferry to Ireland every year. The Irish Sea is notorious for its strong and rapidly changing tidal currents. Tucked away is the port of Amlwch, where Nick Crane is in search of a safe haven that made the locals a mint.
This inlet may be tiny, but it's played a very big part in the local economy. In 1748, a Welsh mapmaker described the port of Amlwch as an insignificant harbour that is not worth mapping. But barely 20 years later, that insignificant harbour became the most important port in Wales. Coming in like this, I'm already beginning to see evidence of that golden age more than 250 years ago. Just look at the effort that went into building these walls. Dotted all around are relics of early industry, proof that this site was once a hive of activity. So what went on here, and what happened to it all? This abandoned road originally ran all the way from the hillside above me to the port down there, and it's known locally as the Copper Road. The name is the first clue to what's going on. Anglesey is incredibly rich in copper ore. In 1768, a particularly rich vein of copper was unearthed here on Paris Mountain, and the earth began to move. Local geologist David Jenkins is going to show me the dramatic impact that discovery had on the landscape. Wow, that is incredible. Just look at the colours, the scale of it. Looks like the kind of hole that a meteorite would make after it's smashed into the earth.
And yet, essentially it was done by hand. At one point there were about 1,500 miners working down here, excavating this hole, blasting with black powder, so it must have been an incredible place. Very spectacular.
But turning this potential mountain of money into hard cash meant arduous, back-breaking work for thousands.
This is a fragment of what was called a cobbing floor. This was a yard where the ore was delivered to women working in sheds, and they would break up the ore into small pieces, and the ones with ore in they would keep, and it would go for roasting and smelting, and the waste rock that would be thrown down and
So it's all
built up this whole
rubbish
area.
around here is built
That's
up
all
on
the
the
wastage.
rubbish. It's not very pleasant work, is it?
12 hours and they got 10p. That was their reward for hard labour.
I'm getting nowhere here. Oh, well, what's that? Oh,
Yes,
what's that?
that's
That's
it.
good.
Eureka.
It's like gold, isn't it? It looks like it's
rather
very
like gold,
similar
bit
to
slightly
gold.
greenier. Oh, you might have got your 10p for this.
The workers scraped out a fortune for the mine's owners. To cash in, they had to transport thousands of tons of copper ore off the island. So some 240 years ago, the tiny nearby port of Amlwch was transformed. That mammoth enterprise has been researched by local historian Brian Hope.
The smelter was up at the top there, and the wind, as it's blowing today, billowing smoke out to sea, and there were complaints that the entrance to the harbour couldn't be found because of that.
Pretty toxic smoke, I guess, isn't it?
Oh, make it
Nasty.
off.
Yeah.
But the sounds, well, you can imagine all the sounds on board ships, and there would have been the sounds of caulking hammers. Would have been a very noisy, smoky place.
Extraordinary, and you're sort of portraying a vision of hell. Smoke and flames and toxic stench, and it sounds absolutely horrendous.
Well, it was. There's no question about that.
Where were the ships sailing to when they left here loaded with copper ore?
Mainly to Swansea, to the Crown smelters there. After all, Swansea was Copperopolis.
The copper from this area dominated the world's markets in the 1780s. It was used to copper-bottom boats, mint coins and fashion ornaments. Global commerce springing from a tiny port in this narrow, rocky chasm.
27 vessels at any one time.
27 wedged in here. It wouldn't have been for any water.
Hardly.
But time was running out. The remaining copper was harder to reach. By the late 1800s, after nearly 100 years, the Amlwch copper rush came to an end. But maybe the story of Paris Mountain isn't over. Perhaps it's just on hold. The amazing colours of the landscape indicate that it's still rich in minerals. There's copper, lead and zinc, and even a sprinkling of gold and silver. There may be a time when demand for the precious metals buried behind the coast of Angelsey make it economic for miners to return to Paris Mountain.
Just off the eastern tip of Angelsey is Puffin Island. The name comes from the vast numbers of the birds that used to breed here. Back in the 19th century, some considered puffins a delicacy, and they were pickled for export. Now, there's just a handful of breeding pairs left. Crossing the Menai Straits, we leave Angelsey behind and approach the mainland of North Wales. And it's not long before you come across another example of the Welsh passion for digging big holes. Here, it's granite they're after. But it's the limestone bulk of the Great Orme that hides the first seaside jewel of this coast, Llandudno. It boasts the longest pier in Wales. At about half a mile, it's a fair stretch of the legs. But for the Victorians who arrived here by steamship, it was the launch pad for adventure.
100 years ago, ships would dock at the end of the pier and visitors would flood along this wooden walkway, heading for the wonderland of Llandudno.
Llandudno was built with tourism in mind. The town quickly became popular, especially with visitors from the industrial Midlands, who flocked here for stunning views and sea air. To set it apart from the competition, a resort needs something special. For Llandudno, that's an unlikely connection with one of the most famous children's stories ever, Alice in Wonderland.
As you wander around Llandudno, Alice and her little Wonderland friends keep popping up.
The town's supposed link to Alice in Wonderland author, Lewis Carroll, was carved out in stone in the 1930s.
To be honest, the Alice in Wonderland Memorial has seen better days, but you can still read the words on the flag. On this very store, during happy rambles with little Alice Liddell, Lewis Carroll was inspired to write that literary treasure, Alice in Wonderland, which has charmed children for generations. Now that's lovely, but is it true?
Just a rabbit's hop away is the only piece of hard evidence. The derelict house that was once the holiday home of Alice Liddell. The inspiration for Carroll's fictional character, Alice. Local historian John Lawson Ray is determined to show just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
It's a fairly sorry-looking building now.
Sadly neglected and altered, but not beyond repair.
And do we know, for example, what room would have been little Alice's?
Yes, we do actually, and it would be round the side at the back, away from the wind, you might say.
Now, what age is this house?
1862.
That's the date of Alice in Wonderland, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So how could Alice's holidays in that house have inspired that book?
Well, we believe it is the later story of Through the Looking Glass.
The next book, in effect?
Yes, the second book, which was just as significant as the first.
Armed with a copy of Alice Through the Looking Glass, I'm going to see how John's theory stacks up. The first clue is out in the bay, almost opposite the house. Two rocks known for generations as the Walrus and the Carpenter. Granted, it's a bit tenuous, but look behind Alice's house and it gets curiouser and curiouser. There's a path leading to the top of the Great Orme. Could this be the same zigzag path that Alice describes in the book?
If I could get to the top of that hill, and here's a path that leads straight to it, at least. No, it doesn't do that, but I suppose it will at last. But how curiously it twists. It's more like a corkscrew than a path.
We've climbed the zigzag path. Where are we?
We're on the top of the hill, as Alice describes, and she looks down and she sees a giant chessboard, and it's here in the book.
Now that is a chessboard, I'll grant you that, but I can see a cricket pitch, I can see a bowling green and a basketball court. I cannot see a chessboard.
In the time when she was here, all of this was undeveloped. The land was earmarked out with roads and streams laid out in a chessboard design. It was designed that way because they auctioned off plots of land.
Who'd have thought you'd come through the Looking Glass and end up in Llandudno?
Well, anything can happen in Wonderland.
Feeling generous, we might let you have that one.
We'll probably never know if Llandudno really was the inspiration for Alice Through the Looking Glass. But perhaps that's not important. What does matter is that it keeps the visitors coming. Llandudno's one of the most popular seaside resorts in Wales. But all along this coast, rivals eye its crown. Competition amongst seaside towns has always been fierce. Less than 20 miles from Llandudno is Rhyl. 100 years ago, this was the #1 destination in this part of the world. Hermione Coburn is on a mission to revisit Rhyl's glory years.
If resort towns take your fancy, then you're spoilt for choice. There are more than 150 around our coast. But as their fortunes ebb and flow, what does it take for a town to keep its head above water?
To discover the secret of success, we need to revisit the golden age when seaside towns were in their Victorian infancy. That was also around the time people first started using picture postcards.
This one of the sands at Rhyl from 1913. It says, "Dear sister, just a reminder from Rhyl, we are having a good time and lovely weather. I trust your decision, if made, is for the best. Love, EEG." What I love about these cards is that all of them have been written here in Rhyl, perhaps not far from where I'm sitting, almost 100 years ago. But here we are now, getting a little insight into their thoughts and their memories, immortalised on these simple bits of card.
The messages from the past are charming, but it's the pictures on the flip side that are the real clue to how Rhyl thrived in those heady Victorian times. Just look at all the people crowded on the promenade. Harry Thomas has amassed hundreds of these postcards. So who better to give me an insight into the unique attractions that used to draw holidaymakers to Rhyl?
People in those early years, they'd enjoyed a day on the beach, they'd had an ice cream, possibly a donkey ride, and they'd love walking along the prom, see the waves lapping beneath them, or sit down on a lovely hot summer's day and read a book. At the end of the pier, visitors of the day could see the world-famous swimmers and divers diving off the end of the pier. And of course we had the Rhyl Stately Dome, which is the Pavilion Theatre. Well, that's where the Sky Tower is today. It was known as the Stately Dome of Rhyl, and that night they'd get dressed up and go to the pavilion to see the actual stage and screen of the day. Like the pier, that was demolished in 1973, unfortunately.
The grandeur in these postcards is just something else, isn't it?
Well, this is what I love about old picture postcards. They give us a window in which we can view the past and shows a world lost forever.
What these postcards show me is the scale of what's been lost here in Rhyl. To understand why our seaside view has changed, I'm meeting resort expert Professor John Walton.
There was competition from a lot of new ways of holiday making within and beyond Britain as people moved from the railway to their cars, and that broke old holiday travel habits.
And what about losing its iconic buildings like the pier and the pavilion? I mean, do you think Rhyl now suffers from a lack of identity?
Yes, what seems to have happened is that in the 50s and 60s, nobody was quite prepared to risk investing in new stuff when they didn't quite know what people wanted. And by the time they'd realised that things were changing, it was a bit too late to rescue the old attractions. And so the pier couldn't be sustained. And other buildings were lost, and they were distinctive buildings that made you know that you were in Rhyl and not somewhere else.
Do you think there's hope for Rhyl? Could it recapture its glory days?
Yes, I think the British seaside really is about to come back into its own, and Rhyl should be part of that.
The sense of loss in Rhyl is a story that's repeated all around our coast, as landmarks of the heyday of our seaside have slowly vanished from the landscape.
Crossing the Dee estuary, we leave Wales behind. For England. Some surprising things wash up on this coast. Halfway along the River Dee, on the banks of the Wirral Peninsula, there's an entire village marooned. Park Gate. Once a seaport, now it has no boats and no water.
200 years ago, if I'd been walking along this edge, the water would have been lapping up 25 feet below me. This was one of the busiest ports of the northwest. Now, the water's gone. This is a seaside village without any sea.
Park Gate was just one of a series of ports built further and further downstream as the River Dee silted up over the centuries. Eventually, nature got her way, and Park Gate was also left high and dry. As we follow the Wirral northwards, the coast looks out onto Liverpool Bay, where the great ships that serve the port of Liverpool dominate the scenery. At the mouth of the Mersey, New Brighton is home to one of the most crowded little shipping lanes anywhere in the world.
My name's Don Morris, and I'm chairman of the New Brighton Model Boat Club. As boating lakes go, this lake behind me does present its challenges. Being on the coast as it is, when the tide comes in and it's windy, we get increased water in the lake as it comes over the wall. When it's a nice day down here, it really is nice to sail. When it's a bad day, well, you don't sail. You build your boats in the winter, you bring them down to the lake in the summer to wreck them so that you've got something to refit the following winter. We did have a big shipyard on the Mersey, so you could see the boats being built there, and a number of the boats that the lads sail on the lake are replicas of what's being built down in Laird's. The most satisfying thing is to sit on the water and watch it do what you intended it to do when you started to build it. Having said that, we've all had our disasters where a boat has sat on the water and immediately rolled over. It's one of the things about boat building. But the main thing is just getting down here and enjoying the boat that you've built, and people of a like mind doing the same kind of thing.
Turning the corner from New Brighton, we meet the coastal conurbations of the River Mersey. Tucked just inland is Birkenhead Park. Opened in 1847, it was the world's first municipal park and inspired the design of Central Park in New York. Work and play goes hand in hand here. Industry has shaped the communities and landscape on this stretch of coast. One such port exists thanks to a revolution in the way we wash our clothes.
At the end of the 19th century, close to the River Mersey, the foundations of a great business empire were laid. This is the village that Soap built. This is Port Sunlight. Port Sunlight was founded over 100 years ago by William Hesketh Lever and his brother. The workers housed here manufactured Sunlight soap for washing clothes, making laundry soap that was hard yet gentle on the hands, meant pioneering a new process using palm oil. Bringing sunlight into grimy Victorian lives was one of the grand claims of the product. I have an advert here for Sunlight soap, dated 1931, extolling its many virtues, including less labour, greater comfort. To see just how Sunlight soap's new formula cleaned up, we're going to make our own version with the help of chemists from the Open University. The first of our two ingredients is caustic soda. That'll make the oil-based soap dissolve in water. The palm oil's job is to dissolve the grease and grime.
We put the palm oil into a bowl and we put it into a water heater, and it's heated up to 90 degrees centigrade. And then we add caustic soda, and you're trying to make a consistency, a bit like when you're making jam, so it solidifies properly.
From about a pint of palm oil, we've only managed to make 6 small tablets of soap. So to mass produce it, Lever's had to import millions of barrels of palm oil. And they came up with a bold solution: build their own private port. In this map of 1899, the banks of the Mersey are simply shown as mud. But by 1936, that mud has been transformed into a great port. And looking round the site today, all that remains is the occasional clue, such as these crane tracks, and over there, the odd bollard. To really see the port of Port Sunlight in its former glory, you need the bigger picture.
Runway 27, clear takeoff.
From here you can begin to see the sheer scale of the operation. All around I can see the green of Port Sunlight. The individual houses all laid out in a rather organised fashion. The whole thing is this extraordinary little village, little oasis. Look, down there's the factory of Unilever, the place that the Lever brothers founded. But I wonder where the original harbour is. Hang on, I can just see it, I think, down here.
It's all gone now. It's a huge landfill site. Actually, with a trained eye of the archaeologists, you can begin to see what's going on. Look, the dock entrance just survived. The lock gates are now gone. But actually, from the air, you can just see the remains of the square shape of the original Bromborough dock.
The Mersey was Lever's gateway to the world, and the old port was the focal point of the business. Local historian Glyn Parry knows what was coming and going through Port Sunlight.
So Glyn, this is the actual entrance to the dock. It is. It was the largest privately owned dock in the world when it was first opened, with quays on both sides, vessels coming in, coming out 24 hours a day, non-stop. Dockers coming over from Liverpool even to work in the dock here.
Presumably large ships came in.
Ocean-going ships came in from the Philippines, from Indonesia, bringing in coconut oil, from West Africa, palm oil.
That's the real stuff.
That's the real stuff.
By the 1930s, Lever's had become a global business by importing raw materials from distant shores. In West Africa, money really did grow on trees. Palm kernels were harvested by hand and processed by foot, releasing the palm oil for Sunlight soap. Its exotic pure ingredients were part of the brand. Advertising promised to brighten up the lives of hard-pressed housewives.
He was selling cleanliness and purity. Look at the name of the place where it was manufactured. Sunlight, cleanliness, bright light. We've got the sun today.
Just like today.
Yeah,
Yes.
wonderful.
The sales pitch promised not only purity, but performance. So is palm oil soap better than its animal fat predecessor?
So these are the two examples of soap.
That's right. We've got the animal fat soap and the palm oil soap.
Oh God, that's a rather rancidy smell. And that's a lot more fragrant. Now the critical question is, which works better?
Well, we're going to try that. We're going to try with the t-shirt with the jam stain, butter stain, and ordinary dirt.
So have you got yours over there?
I've got mine here, yes.
And look, we've got an old-fashioned washable. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to give you the animal fat one because I want to win this competition.
Thank you.
Right.
Right.
I'm completely white and you're covered in, well, dirt, jam and butter. I think that palm oil washes whiter.
We've definitely proved it.
The old port's become landfill, but the soap business is still here. Port Sunlight is now a research centre for Unilever, the industrial giant that started with a vision of selling sunlight.
The River Mersey is the lifeblood of this corner of England, and lends its name to the conurbation that has grown up around it. Merseyside. Its heart is Liverpool. For almost 300 years, Liverpool has been connected to the entire world through trade and shipping. Where once they berthed ships, now the docks are home to brash new business and leisure developments. But 40 years ago, it was a very different story.
Through the dock gates, thousands of dock workers are arriving. In port, there are nearly 90 ships waiting to be loaded or unloaded. Every day, 15 or 20 ships arrive with cargoes we need. Every day, 15 or 20 other ships sail, taking away the things other countries need from us. This is one of Britain's doorways to and from the rest of the world.
Those same quays are mostly deserted today, but it's not just the ships that have gone. Being a docker was a way of life for people like Mike Cullen, For 30 years he came down to the waterfront, a workplace that's now a ruin.
This place looks as if it was abandoned 100 years ago.
Well, it is desolation, but it's not. This was a working dock up to a few years ago, although you wouldn't think so.
But it looks like a lot more than 20 years has passed here.
Anything gets left soon gets overrun, doesn't it? It's sad when you know you've lived in Liverpool all your life and you've seen what the docks used to be and what they are now.
Some key landmarks have been saved. But what's lost completely is the way of life. In the early 1960s, Colin Jones visited Liverpool docks for The Observer to capture the dockers' working lives.
When did you take these photographs?
In the winter of 1963 I came up here.
Because if you showed me this and asked me when I thought it had been taken, I would say the 1930s or even earlier.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? We were doing a thing on the recession, which in 62, 61 was terrible here, you know, unemployment, and the recession was beginning to bite, you know.
What age is this guy when you took the pictures?
Well, it's difficult to say, but I think he must be between 30 and 34. They always look much older. Yeah, sad. He died not long after the pictures were taken.
And this one again, I mean, you know, it looks like a photograph taken from the Depression in the 1920s or something.
Yeah.
But when you were here, this place was busy and there were thousands of men.
Yeah.
And to look at it now, where it's dead,
it's like as if the atomic bombers happened. You know, there's just a few crazy things left, like the clock and these amazing buildings.
Colin's photographs bring home the gritty reality of the dockers' world. Mike still remembers his first day on the job.
To be honest, the first day was a bit of a culture shock. You wasn't guaranteed a day's pay. You had to turn up at a place called a pen to get hired. And you got a tap on the shoulder, you give your book and you were hired for the day. You got a day's pay. If you didn't get a tap on the shoulder, you didn't get hired. But you got your book stamp, you put AP on your book, so attendance proven. So you'd get a nominal payment for that.
When you talk about, you know, turning up and maybe getting work, maybe not, was it a case of who you were, whether your face fitted, who your dad was?
Oh, there was obviously bosses there who were the favourites. You know, if you were one of his favourites, then you got the tap on the shoulder and you got a job.
And so the guys bringing up families on that kind of circumstance?
Yeah. It wasn't too bad for lads who were single or lads like myself who just got married and had no children. But anyone trying to bring up a family on it, it was a horrendous way of working.
Loading and unloading ships by hand was arduous and dangerous. It was all done under the careful supervision of the stevedores.
It was his job to stow the cargo in such a way that it was going to be safe when it went to sea and none of the cargo moved.
So was the work of a stevedore more of an art, more of a skill?
Yeah, it was a skill, yeah. You got like a shilling an hour extra for being stevedore.
The skills of the dockers and stevedores put them in a position of power, controlling the imports and exports that kept the country moving. It was a power that their unions weren't afraid to exploit. But the shipping companies had an ace up their sleeve, a trump card which would consign the dockers' way of life to history.
And the end came, packaged like this.
The simple metal box that changed the world, the container. Once container ships entered shipping lanes around the globe, the lives of the dockers would never be the same. As the old ways vanished, but that success was built on the backs of its dockers. Once beyond the mouth of the Mersey, we leave its urban and industrial landscape behind, as the coastline transforms into an ocean of sand. Sefton has the largest expanse of open dunes in England. But they provide more than just a stunning backdrop. Look closely and you'll find a world that's teeming with life. Miranda Kristovnikov is setting out in search of resourceful creatures that must struggle to survive the twice-daily tides.
We are off on a sand safari, and for the creatures that we're hoping to track down, we've got loads of specialised equipment. We've got ultra-sensitive microphones and close-up cameras, so we're going to see and hear the coast like we've never done before. If you're a tiny beach creature, the tide hits you like a giant tsunami. Time to head for the hills. These tiny sandhoppers can leap up to 20 times their body height. Handy when they're trying to escape from hungry predators. Soundman Chris thinks his buried microphone has picked up the hoppers under a log. That's absolutely fantastic. There's lots of scurrying and scratching around. It's a whole hive of activity going on down there.
We're hearing them through the sand, so it's the vibrations that we're picking up.
And to get even closer to them, we've got a very high-tech
These, in fact, these are personal microphones like the ones we're wearing, but the idea is if you get them really close, we can hear their perspective without any background sea sounds or any of this wind noise.
Oh, there they are, leaping all over the place. Fantastic.
Snap, crackle and pop. It's a different sound from under the seaweed. It's that sort of flick as they spring into the air.
Excellent, oh, what fun. Sandhoppers are miniature crustaceans, relatives of lobsters, crabs and shrimps, which makes them a good source of protein for larger predators. The sandhopper seaweed left high and dry in the strand line after the tide has retreated. Moving up from the strand line isn't far before you get to the dune system here. It's vast. Westerlies whip across the Irish Sea, building a mighty dune system, grain by painstaking grain. We're off to explore this wind-blown landscape in search of the bigger beasts which roam this sea of sand. If the sand forms the building blocks of the dunes, then the cement binding them together is the marram grass. This carpet of marram grass stretches its roots over 30 feet deep to seek out fresh water. Paul Rooney is my guide to the exotic creatures that inhabit these dunes.
We've gone from bare sand on the beach through the mobile dunes dominated by marram grass. Now the marram grass has done its job and other plants and animals are starting to come in now. We're starting to see things like sand lizards, the predatory specialists.
They're rare, aren't they?
They're very rare, and the Merseyside Second Coast dunes are the most northerly natural outpost of sand lizards up here. But then we also get things like the dune tiger beetle, which loves the bare sand and will flit around and look for its other smaller prey.
With fearsome predators patrolling the dunes, it's no wonder the little sandhoppers keep their heads down during the day. But eventually, even they have to come out to eat under the cover of darkness. Where are the sandhoppers now? They're not going to be... Oh, hang on, they are, aren't they?
We're just surrounded by them.
We are. It's absolutely teeming. Look at that.
Well, at night time,
I don't want to step anywhere.
Well, the adults come out of the burrows, which are higher up the beach, and they're now moving out, grazing across the beach, looking to fill themselves up.
Unfortunately for sandhoppers, they aren't the only ones out on the prowl. Natterjack toads hunt sandhoppers, and we're hunting the natterjacks. There's something moving. Is that one over there?
There we go. Here's one.
Fantastic. You have to pick it up because I'm not licensed to.
Okay, this is it. Here we go, a natterjack.
Magic.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Natterjacks are a protected species, but Paul's licensed to handle them so he can get really close. Lovely stripe down the back.
Yeah, beautiful animals. It's called the running toad, and this is one of the big differences between this and the common toads. These animals are really visual. They spot the prey and they'll race across the sand for them. I mean, just look at the way it was running across the sand.
Yeah, it's quite a fast runner. Whereas a common toad will just sort of sit there and wait for its dinner to come to it.
It's just
and
he's off. He's off. Yeah. The running toad.
The running toad. There he is. Left to their own devices, toads, with their excellent night vision and super fast tongues, hoover up the sandhoppers in their hundreds. But with millions of them still left on the beach, that's a drop in the ocean.
Southport is the home of Britain's oldest pleasure pier. But this 140-year-old edifice has recently had a £7 million facelift. The new pavilion perched at the end may look space age, but take a step inside and you're transported back in time. This is one penny arcade that really lives up to its name. The slots here will only accept old pennies, and all the amusement machines are the real thing, some dating back to the 1930s.
I love these machines, but at the same time there's always a feeling of melancholy about arcades like this, because it was the kind of place you ended up in when it was raining and you couldn't go on the beach. But to be quite honest, I remember on day trips to seaside resorts, I was just as happy to get in here and get some money from my dad to play these machines as I was to do anything else. And I'm not leaving here without that little black car. Yes!
Crossing that Ribble estuary, we reach the Fylde coast and the restrained charms of Lytham St Anne's. No preparation for what's in store as we head for its noisy neighbour to the north. Blackpool is Britain's most visited seaside destination. How has this resort succeeded where others have gone under?
And the in-your-face razzmatazz might not be everyone's cup of tea, but to many, this is the Las Vegas of the North.
In the cold light of the morning after, the glamour fades, but the resort rolls on. What I want to know is how Blackpool has always continued to pull in the punters. Tourism expert Professor John Walton is on hand to help me out.
So John, here we are in Blackpool, and what strikes me first of all is that it seems to have retained all its major attractions. To me, the view is largely unchanged.
Yes, you've got the tower dominating. To the right, of course, the big difference is the gigantic wheel. It came down in 1929. It was actually put up in 1896, just 2 years after the tower. The idea was brought over from the Chicago International Exposition of 1893. They tried it out in London, and Blackpool had to have it, because Blackpool had to have everything that was new.
What do you think the key innovations that Blackpool latched onto have been throughout its history?
Blackpool was always very keen on being first with things or early with things. So it had probably the world's first public tramway system running along the seafront. And of course Blackpool was very early in having electric lighting. So Blackpool was very proud of being in the vanguard of new developments. And of course its town motto is progress.
Blackpool has always imported ideas from around the world to attract visitors. The saying Las Vegas of the North has more than a ring of truth.
The American influence runs especially deep here at the Pleasure Beach.
Blackpool's made a virtue of its past by preserving its heritage. Scattered amongst the state-of-the-art thrill rides are attractions that hark back to the park's origins over a century ago. And this is one of the oldest in Europe.
And it's just one of many innovative attractions imported here from America.
The inspiration came from a visit to Coney Island in New York by William George Bean in the 1890s. Bean returned to Blackpool to build an American-style amusement park. The big idea? Make adults feel like children again. It's a philosophy that's still paying dividends for William Bean's great-granddaughter, Amanda Thompson.
what I want to really know is the whole story of your great-grandfather.
Well, originally, many, many moons ago, his father was a river pilot on the Thames, and he was from London, and he went off to explore, and went off to New York, went off to Coney Island, saw what they were doing there, and was very excited about the prospects of bringing something that was started and created in America back to England. And so he brought back the Hotchkiss Bicycle Railway, and it was quite exciting really for him, I guess, because when he brought it back he had no place to put it, and eventually he decided upon Blackpool. So Blackpool was chosen as the spot to basically start the pleasure beach.
The fortunes of Blackpool as a resort were really down to him in many ways.
A Londoner, a good old Londoner, brought Blackpool alive.
William George Bean's innovation and showmanship created a pleasure park that's continued to entice people in over the years. Blackpool's not been immune to the decline of our seaside resorts, but it still has 70,000 holiday beds. So what does make this town tower above the others?
Part of it is that Blackpool has a very, very strong brand, a very strong historic identity as the world's first working-class seaside resort. And that's something that's given it a unique heritage.
So what do you think the future for the British seaside resort town is?
The worst thing you can do is throw everything out, get rid of your old visitors, try and start again from scratch. What you need to do is actually work with what you've got and make the very best of it.
Maybe there are lessons to learn from the early pioneers of towns like Blackpool, who gambled on innovation to bring in business. Nearly 100 years ago, Blackpool found a novel way of extending its season by a whole 2 months, and that brainwave still lights up the northwest coast every year. The illuminations stretch for almost 6 miles. If other resorts can find their own inimitable way of drawing in the crowds, then maybe the future of our seaside towns is bright.
Two miles north of Blackpool, the coastline recently acquired a new tourist attraction, but this one definitely wasn't planned.
Off the coast of Blackpool, a near disaster. A freak wave left this ferry from Northern Ireland on the beach.
When the Riverdance ferry got into trouble in the Irish Sea, a huge rescue operation was launched, coordinated by the local Coast Guard, which is when the search and rescue team from RAF Valley was scrambled. This footage was recorded in pitch darkness by the team's night vision cameras and shows the horrendous conditions they faced. They've flown back to the scene to talk me through one of their most spectacular rescues. Flight Lieutenant Giles Radcliffe was the co-pilot.
So talk me through what happened on the night that the people of the Riverdance had to be rescued.
I think we were called out about 8:30. It took us about 20 minutes to get here. And then we found the Riverdance, the ferry.
Well, Fleur, come and got a significant list to the port. You got that last as well, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that's a bit of a list. It was in quite a predicament really. It was leading about 60 degrees to port. Both its engines had stopped and the captain wanted people taken off.
And what was the weather?
The wind was gusting up to about 70 knots. The sea state, the waves were the size of houses really, about 20 foot. It was definitely the worst conditions I've flown in since I've been in Valley.
And so what were you actually required to do in terms of getting people off?
We ended up coming up with a plan whereby people were lowered out from the wheelhouse onto the low side of the vessel, and then we were able to winch them up from there. The boat was moving around quite a lot. We had to be very close to the boat, close to the masts, so there was the potential to come into contact with the boat, and that would be very nice. It was certainly a pretty bad night. It could have been worse, but thankfully it wasn't.
After it washed ashore, the ship became a local celebrity.
By the time you watch this programme, This scene will be gone forever, but for me, it's a fantastic opportunity to find out just how you go about moving over 3,000 tonnes of ferry off of a beach. Overseeing the gargantuan task of removing this maritime relic from Blackpool's beach is salvage expert Donald MacDonald. When you're confronted with this, how do you even start to work out how you're going to get rid of it?
In the early stages, we didn't anticipate this. The early stages were a case of get the vessel refloated and take her back to sea. And despite all our efforts, she remained there. Later, at the end of March, we had a very severe storm which finished any salvage operation.
So what's happening now is like the last resort, really?
This is the last resort because in the United Kingdom, we don't cut up ships on beaches.
And of course, you've got the time to deal with.
At this moment in time, we've got a spring tide, so we get a bit of time to work on it, up to about 5.5 hours per tide. Next week, we might not get near the ship.
There is something that affects you, isn't there? Seeing a big ship like this lying on its side, it kind of gets you in your stomach somehow.
A ship should be upright, floating, not lying on its side, being cut into small pieces. As a merchant seaman, I can sympathise with this ship. However, we'll do it best, we'll give it a tidy end.
Today, there's barely a scrap of the river dance left at its last port of call on Blackpool's beach. Shifting fortunes have marked every step of this journey. From the abandoned copper mines of Angelsey to the vanished Victorian grandeur of Rill and the fresh new face of Liverpool, the people of this coast are nothing if not resilient. They know how to earn and they know how to spend.
Blackpool, of course, was where a lot of that hard-earned cash was spent by people taking a break from tough, industrious lives. On this coast, work and play have always lived side by side.
Next time, we're island hopping up Scotland's west coast. I'm in search of sea eagles. Alice sets sail for Skye, and Nick's measuring the coastline.
Concentrated! 94, 95.
Join us as we venture into the vast Atlantic, heading for the Faroe Islands.